Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the webinar titled Open UI, the New Face of Siebel CTMS. Before we begin with our traditional housekeeping items, I'd like to share some exciting news with those that haven't heard yet. On April 1st, BioPharm was acquired by Proficient, a leading provider of IT solutions to the healthcare and life sciences industry, and a company that has a very, very strong relationship with Oracle. So what does this mean for everyone? Well, first, it means that our name has changed to Proficient. It means that we're bigger. And finally, it means that our clients now have access to a broader range of services and solutions. It's also important to note that our incredible team will also stay at Proficient. And part of that team is our presenter today, Param Singh. So now that I've got that news out of the way, I'd like to officially welcome you to the webinar, Open UI, the New Face of Siebel CTMS, presented by Param Singh, who leads the Clinical Trial Management Solutions team at Proficient. My name is Eugene Stefanov, the Marketing Manager at Proficient for the Life Sciences vertical, and I'll be going over some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Param. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. However, you may submit questions to the speaker at any time today by typing them in the chat feature located on the left side of your screen. Please state your questions clearly and keep in mind other webinar participants will not see your questions or comments. Nonetheless, your questions to the speaker will be addressed as time allows towards the end of the presentation. If you still have unanswered questions after the webinar or would like to request information from us, feel free to visit the company's website for contact information. As a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on biopharm.com within 24 hours. We will also be emailing you a link to the recording and the PDF version of the presentation. This concludes our housekeeping items. I would now like to turn the call over to Param Singh.
Thank you, Eugene. So welcome everyone to our first official webinar as Proficient. We didn't get time to update all the slides, so we're still looking at our old templates for the slides today. So let me start out by introducing myself. My name is Param Singh, and I'm the lead of the Clinical Trial Management Solution practice, which is now officially part of the Life Science Business Unit of Proficient. I've been working in the industry for the past 15 years, and I've almost exclusively been working with Siebel Clinical during that time. Before joining the Proficient team officially 2 days ago and BioPharm Systems a little over 6 years ago, I was part of Accenture's pharma R&D practice and leading Siebel CTMS implementations there as well. And now overall I've been part of more than 30 plus projects of implementing Siebel Clinical. And these all vary from implementations for pharma, CROs, medical device companies, academic institutions, and also range from anywhere as little as 5 users to global implementations of over 4,500 users. So let's get started for today. So before we get started with the webinar, I did want to introduce, take a minute just to talk about our team here and explain a little bit more about what we do within our practice before we get to today's webinar. So we provide a variety of services and products related to clinical trial management. We manage custom implementations of Siebel Clinical CTMS, as well as our accelerator solution for Siebel CTMS called Ascend. Also, if you've seen some of our previous webinars, you know that we do extensive work with integrations in Siebel Clinical and related systems. And we offer comprehensive training services and products related to all of these solutions, including on-site or web-based trainer-led courses, as well as e-learning courses for the applications that we support. And our approach to system implementations is very process-focused. And we also provide our process consulting services to help organizations define and harmonize their SOPs and business process across their organization with respect to clinical trial management. So that's just a glimpse of some of the services and products that we offer in this space. We do have 3 other practices within the life science business unit that focus on clinical data management, safety and pharmacovigilance, and clinical data warehousing and analytics. And of course, on a much larger set of offerings all across all of Proficient. So please feel free to contact us for more information. So here's a look at today's agenda. We're going to start out with a basic overview of what Siebel OpenUI is. We'll then discuss some of the clear benefits of OpenUI. So with the latest version of Siebel Clinical, where OpenUI has been introduced, there are also some additional Siebel Clinical enhancements, which we're going to look at briefly. And then we'll turn our discussion to the implementation options available. Again, with accelerator options, applications like Ascend on the market, there are a few different options when implementing Siebel CTMS with OpenUI. We'll give a high-level overview of BioPharm's Ascend Siebel Clinical Accelerator as an option for a new implementation. And then for those organizations that have Siebel CTMS in-house and would like to upgrade to the latest version with OpenUI, we'll discuss that path, the upgrade path, and some considerations for that upgrade. And then finally, as time permits, we'll spend some time looking at some basic features of OpenUI in a live demo of the system, and we will finish with some time left for questions. So keep in mind, as stated, you can submit your questions at any time during the webinar using the chat feature, and we'll address as many of those questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, let's move on. So before we actually get to the actual content for today, we do have a couple of questions that we'd like you guys to participate in. So we just want to see a breakdown of sort of the different types of organizations that are on the webinar today. So if you can take a moment to answer the next couple of questions. So the first question is, what version of Siebel CTMS is your organization on currently? So it ranges from a series of versions, or you don't have Siebel CTMS in-house. So if you can answer that question and hit submit. We'll just give another few seconds just for everyone to answer that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second question, is when is your organization planning to upgrade or make enhancements? So immediately this year, next year, no plans to upgrade. If you've already upgraded and you have no plans to upgrade, of course, or if you're not sure. So if you could take a few seconds just to answer that, and we'll look at sort of the breakdown of where different organizations are. Okay. Okay, so Eugene, you might need to help me with this. I'm not sure. Okay, so here we go. Here's the breakdown of what version of Siebel CTMS is your organization on currently. So the vast majority are either do not have Siebel CTMS or are in that 8111 to 8115 category, so looking to potentially upgrade. We do have some organizations on older versions as well, so that's great. And in terms of making enhancements, it looks like either immediately or this year. Looks like the popular answers there. Well, great. Thank you for participating in that. So let's get started. So first, what is OpenUI? So OpenUI, it's a brand new user interface for Siebel that allows the application to run across multiple browsers and platforms. This includes multiple browser support, including Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, and it also has multiple platform support, including your iPad, iPhone, Windows, and Android devices as well. So this release of Siebel OpenUI was really aimed to address Siebel's biggest shortcoming with the dependency on Internet Explorer and ActiveX components. So with the industry and most of the world fundamentally changing the way they interact with applications and technology, the Siebel application really had to change to address that. So what are some of the benefits of Siebel OpenUI? So we can see an increase in user adoption. The OpenUI platform is heavily customizable by each organization. So this application is virtually unlimited customization capabilities provided by client-side JavaScript framework. And what that means is really that each organization can make this application their own and integrate the look and feel with their other internal web applications. So there are unlimited possibilities with the types of customizations that you can do, and you're also able to integrate already developed JavaScript tools into the application. So we see increased user productivity since it is a browser and platform independent application. Basic operations that are native to the device and browser that you're using, that the user is using, will work as expected. So the application behaves the way the user would expect it to behave based on their experience with the browser or the platform being used, and it decreases the learning curve for the use of the application. And then we see an enhanced user experience. So in this new version of Siebel, the Siebel features in the application have been enhanced to ease the use of the application by the user. And furthermore, if there are JavaScript tools that are used in other web applications within your organization, those can be incorporated into the Siebel application to give a very consistent user experience across those applications. Siebel OpenUI offers native device integration. So a user really can take full advantage of the native integration between the application and the other tools that are available in the device. So here are some examples of possible integrations for devices. So when viewing a contact information in Siebel on your iPhone, you can simply click on the phone number and it will call the investigator. There's already geolocation integration with OpenUI, so when you enter a physical address, it can actually plot the geolocation, the longitude, latitude on a map, and then integrate with your Google Maps for directions and check-in, etc. And you can also see an example of how you can integrate signature capability directly into the application. So for things like signing a trip report or signing documents, this may take some additional configuration, but with OpenUI, this is now possible. And so you can also see some examples of data entry with the native device virtual keyboard, and also you can take pictures and use those as attachments directly in the application. So lots of possibilities. So the application can integrate with those native device features seamlessly and provide for a more enhanced user experience. So Siebel OpenUI is a true standards-based web client. So the age of the plugin is rapidly coming to a close. So Flash, Silverlight, ActiveX, and to some degree Java for UI use and are reduced because they don't run on all mobile devices and create deployment and security concerns as well. So with the release of Windows 8, Microsoft, we know, will not fully support ActiveX components anymore. So the new Siebel web client provides a true web-based client deployment. To log in to the application, all the user needs is a URL and credentials. There's no additional requirement for any additional browser configurations or ActiveX components, etc. To look at an ease of configuration example, OpenUI is going to be using JavaScript, and more specifically jQuery, which is a cross-platform JavaScript library designed to simplify the user side or the client side scripting of the HTML. So this enables the application to dynamically respond to data and user actions. So just a simple couple of examples on this. It can allow for a date less than today's date in a particular date field that somebody's entering. So it'll actually do some of that data validation on the browser side. You can also dynamically display fields, based on fields that the user is actually selecting. So, for example, it can dynamically display a state field only when the country USA is selected. So all of this can be done on more of the browser side. So this allows for a much more nimble and refreshed front-end architecture while maintaining the robust, proven back-end on the server side. So with all the added benefits that we discussed, I also have to mention one of the last ones on the list, which is leveraging existing configurations. So the architecture of OpenUI provides a seamless transition into deployment and usage of the application while still maintaining the Siebel high interactivity technology that you're used to today. So this makes it not only possible to turn on existing components into OpenUI, but also for both environments to coexist if you choose to do so in your organization. So with all these benefits, the main goal of OpenUI technology is really to reduce and lower your total cost of ownership and achieve your return on your investment a lot quicker. So let's look at some of the key CTMS or clinical enhancements that have come out with 8.11.11 and OpenUI, and these are just sort of a handful of the high-level clinical enhancements that you'll see in the system. So the first one is Study Calendar. In this release, Oracle has put some support for complex studies and multiple treatment arms, and also put in some related enhancements in the subject visit template to track versions better and help automatically track subject statuses. Next, we have some new data-driven trip report configurations. The goal here was really to provide a trip report enhancements to make the base trip report a little bit more dynamic out of the box for better usability. And some of those key capabilities in the area are the ability to design separate trip report templates based on protocol, region, and visit type. You can apply the relevant template when you're creating the trip report. You now have dynamic branching of questions with the use of smart scripts, so preset answers, answer types, and prompting answers will help the CRA better know what needs to be completed on the trip report during the site visit. We have questions and answers are saved to the trip report for review and approval. We have a summary view that provides an overall snapshot of the trip report completion status, a snapshot view that lets you verify site subject enrollment status, and additional data capture ability during CRF tracking. Next, we look at subject scheduling. So in combination with the changes at the administrative or subject visit template level, we now have the ability to automatically track subject statuses a little bit differently than it was done before. And it can be somewhat configured differently for each study, so additional flexibility there. They also introduced a few new views here, including a new accruals view to be able to see that, Oracle also introduced a new subject scheduling concept. So we no longer screen and enroll patients or rescreen patients separately, but instead we can schedule the patient's visits all together, and then have some options for recalculating or rescheduling those patients as actual dates are entered for completed visits. And we can also track when planned visits were missed by the subject. And so all of these elements give us greater flexibility when it comes to subject visit tracking and greater visibility into those actual statuses of the visits themselves. And lastly, we'll look at clinical payment enhancements. So the key goal here with the payment enhancements was really to provide clinical payment functionality for users to handle a broader variety of payment scenarios, ranging from splitting payments across multiple payees, identifying multiple payees, reverting payments, and also providing VAT support for global studies. So some of the key capabilities here, again, defining split details for any payment activity at the site level based on the site contracts. So you split those details to split payments for visits among multiple payees, and they'll generate payments accordingly. We can consolidate payments for each payee into a single payment record. We can copy split details from one activity to multiple activities to make the setup of that a little easier. We can revert payment activities at a certain stage of the payment lifecycle and update and reprocess those activities for payment. And there's new fields. There's a new field at the site payment level to capture VAT amount paid. So the roll-up VAT amount from site to region to protocol and into program level is exposed now. And so with all these enhancements, sponsors and CROs can leverage these features to process all of that, sort of split payments, revert payments, and capture those VAT amounts. So what did we do as BioPharm or Proficient, our team, in evaluating all of these new enhancements that were introduced in Siebel CTMS 81111? We took it upon ourselves to adopt the most industry-relevant features and enhancements and combine them with one of the most advanced Siebel CTMS accelerators on the market, which is our Ascend solution. And we created our Ascend 2.0, which is our new latest Siebel CTMS Open UI accelerator solution to give our clients more options when it comes to implementing Siebel CTMS. So with this new release of Ascend, here are the different options that are available from an implementation perspective. So each of these are specific to a new implementation of Siebel. So option one is to implement 81111 Open UI out of the box, vanilla Siebel. This would be a purely vanilla install and implementation, taking on all of the functionality as it is in Siebel CTMS out of the box. Organizations don't ever really implement Siebel vanilla, so there would be some level of configuration and customization that the organization would need or want to do to the application to meet their requirements. Option two is to implement Ascend 2.0 out of the box, and so this will include all of the relevant features of Siebel CTMS Open UI, but also have a lot of industry standard configurations and features that are commonly requested when implementing a CTMS. And this implementation also includes tried and tested configurations and all of the system development lifecycle and validation documentation, as well as a training package for the implementation. And then the last option, or option three, is to implement Ascend 2.0 plus, adding additional configurations to the system that are specific to your organization or organization's additional requirements that may not be met with Ascend out of the box, such as integrations to internal systems and further automation and notifications across the application. So this option also would include all of the base Ascend documentation and additional documentation to address the additional requirements and functionality that would be added. So with any and all of these options, they can be implemented on site within your organization's IT infrastructure, or it can be hosted. So those are your varied sort of new implementation options when it comes to implementing Siebel CTMS. So a little bit more about the Ascend solution for those of you that are not familiar with it. So Ascend, it's a pre-configured version of Siebel Clinical. So Siebel Clinical is a very configurable application. So we created a pre-configured version of Siebel Clinical just from the experience that we had from implementing the solution for many clients. So it expands on the Siebel Clinical functionality and adds a lot of features and functionality that's specific to CTMS. It's actually been reviewed and approved by Oracle Expert Services. So what that means is it's taking Oracle's best practices when it comes to the configurations that we've made to the system. And it's fast to implement. So a typical Siebel implementation, utilizing Siebel Clinical Vanilla and doing some additional configurations can take anywhere on the upwards of 6 to 9 to 12 months, depending on the level of configurations that you're doing. So what we've done is with Siebel, with the Ascend solution, is reduce that time considerably. So in some cases, as little as 10 to 12 weeks to implement a fully validated Ascend system. So significant time and cost savings. It comes with a full train-the-trainer training, full administration training. It's valid, FDA validation ready, and we also have SOPs that come with the application. So not only just a technical solution accelerator, but all of the business process around it and training around it is delivered as well. So some of the key differentiators of Ascend, again, the time and cost savings is a huge benefit. Just overall, in some cases, again, 75–80% of time and cost saved. We have additional site and subject functionality in it, so we can track protocol deviations, supplies, site issues, monitoring visits, adverse events. So a lot has been added from a site management perspective. We have a robust investigator database that has additional complex search capability and also a new module for targeted site selection. Advanced trip report management and review with full-on approval and status history, and streamlined administration. So really just a lot of key features that we've added to the system to streamline the application and make it a more enhanced, streamlined user experience. So those were the implementation options for an organization choosing to do a new implementation of Siebel CTMS. So for those of you that have CTMS in-house but would like to take advantage of the Open UI release, you'll have to consider your reasons for upgrading to the latest version. And here are some top reasons for upgrading. So one, modernizing the user adoption. So for user adoption. So moving away from older technology and going with a refreshed look and feel and experience of the application. Second is probably the most widely cited reason for the upgrade is moving away from any specific browser and operating system dependence. Third is leveraging your existing Siebel Clinical investment to continue to evolve and scale your solution. Fourth is quicker deployment of new capabilities and moving away from traditional Siebel deployment and development and deployment. 5, older versions are no longer being updated, so all of the and additional tools that are available, from Oracle, for example, such as clinical development analytics and mobile CRA, those are only going to be working, and integrated with the newer version of Siebel. And then the last one is putting in the investment now to upgrade to, again, lower your long-term total cost of ownership. So, these are the key sort of top reasons for going forward with an upgrade. So what are your paths to your upgrade? So it really depends on which version of Siebel you're currently on today. So this is some basic, very high-level technical detail from Oracle on what it will take or what the path is to really upgrade your system and the steps to that upgrade. You can find more details, on some Oracle documentation, but this is sort of at a high level, some of the steps that are needed from a technical perspective for upgrading various versions of Siebel. And you can see that there's a different path for anyone that's currently on an 8.1.1 X implementation and wants to move to 8.1.1.11. The other considerations to make are operating systems and server operating systems and things like that may need an upgrade as well. And this is probably a good time to address that if you're thinking about upgrading. So based on our own internal upgrade to OpenUI, we've come up with an approach to tackle the upgrade along with indications on the time required for each of these high-level steps. So the figures here are based on the assumption that all required resources are allocated to the project appropriately and really are highly dependent on the scopes. So the duration of each of these steps is directly proportional to the amount of customizations and configurations, and whether you have integration already part of your Siebel application. So all of that has to be taken into account when looking at how long this effort is really going to be. So the first part is just the assessment. So really looking at the current environment and doing some upgrade readiness and getting a cost and estimate and plan together. So really just taking a look at the level of customizations that you have, level of configurations, what is going to be potentially impacted, looking at release notes from Oracle and sort of aligning them with some of the configurations that you've done on your current system. And then you do a technical upgrade, so sort of a mock upgrade on a sandbox or a development environment. So upgrading, just doing the technical pieces of the upgrade, deploying that OpenUI and starting to perform some pilot testing on whether all the components are working as expected. And then the longest piece of this is really the functional upgrade, and looking at everything that has been impacted. So there's going to be a considerable amount of testing that needs to happen on regression testing on all of your previous configurations, looking at all of the new functionality that's been introduced in the newest version, and seeing whether you want to adopt that or turn some of those features off, and how they impacted your existing configuration. So this is the longest or largest piece of your upgrade, and it's going to be sort of the way we've experienced it, a more iterative approach, where you're testing out all of the functional pieces of the application, making some development changes to what you want to turn off or turn on, and fix some of the things that have potentially broken. So deploying all of those existing configurations and customizations into OpenUI. So you're going to pretty much execute a system development lifecycle or a change control, and the entire lifecycle or parts of it are going to be executed during that sort of functional upgrade and all of the testing that goes along with it. So a couple things to mention here. One of the things that you want to make sure is you're leveraging existing customizations and integrations. So some of the new functionality that's coming through may be addressing some of the things that you've already done in your configuration. So you'll have to make a decision whether, which functionality you want to continue to adopt. But again, a consideration of if you adopt the new functionality that's coming through from the newer version, there'll be a data migration to to the new functionality for historical data that's in your system. So a lot of that needs to be sort of thought through during this process. So with that, I think next we're going to move into the demo portion. So I'm just trying to keep to time here. So we'll spend a little bit of time in the demo, and then we'll come back and have some time for questions. So let me share my desktop. Okay. And Eugene, I'll if there are any issues with lag or anything, I'll look to you to let me know.
Sure.
So here we are in our non-open UI, so our original sort of 811. This I believe is the 8114, 811 version of Siebel. So if you haven't seen this before, this is the older non-open UI interface, and you can see that I'm running this on Internet Explorer. It only runs on Internet Explorer. I don't have any other options. But this is the way that it's sort of laid out, and it pretty much looks similar across different organizations that have implemented this solution. It has a consistent or similar look and feel across each of those organizations. And while you have the ability to configure the system, to a certain degree, there's less flexibility when it comes to the basic look and feel and how it gets rendered in the browser. So I just wanted to sort of come in here and level set before we jump into the OpenUI. So for OpenUI, and you'll notice that I have both Chrome and Firefox open. So here is an upgraded Siebel application in OpenUI. It looks, in terms of layout, it looks pretty similar, but it obviously has a different sort of look and feel. And it's being rendered in Firefox. And if I go to my Chrome window, you'll see that I have the same application up in Chrome, and it's pretty consistent across each of these browsers. And I wish I could demonstrate for you, how it looks on a mobile device, but we run this application in its entirety on an iPad as well, and it gets rendered, again, very similar. So you have a consistent user experience across any browsers, any operating systems. You can run it on a Mac, and you'll have a very consistent look and feel, a very consistent user experience when it comes to running it on multiple browsers. So for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to stay in Chrome, but I did want to open it up in multiple browsers just to sort of show you that it is very, very consistent in terms of the way it runs on multiple browsers. So from a usability standpoint, Oracle's introduced a couple of neat features from a user preferences perspective. So here I can actually, this is the traditional layout of Siebel where we have our screen tabs and our view tabs, but I can change this from a user perspective. Let's see. Let's go into here.
There is a slight lag, just so you know.
Okay. I think my session timed out as well, so let me log back in. Okay, so from a user perspective, you have a few options. You can see that when I sort of go from screen to screen, it has some transitions and things like that. Those are all user controlled. So I'm going to go into my user preferences and go into behavior, and I can change a few more things than I used to be able to. So my navigation control is traditional tab. I can actually change that, and let's, I can go to a tree view, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can create multiple themes. So right now we have the 2 themes that are sort of out of the box, but you can create additional themes of colors that you can introduce for a user to change. So here I'm going to pick this gray accordion, and you notice those transitions. If I wanted to turn those off, I can do that if I was getting tired of transitions. So we can save that, and for me to view that, I would have to just log out and log in and view those changes, and you'll see that the system renders slightly differently. So now, instead of the screen and view tabs that are all across the top, I have this tree view that I can actually turn off. So it's like a menu that I can turn on, turn off. And so I would navigate the same way. So if I wanted to go to my protocols list, here I am at my protocol, and click on one of these protocols, and I have my view tabs here as well. So it's slightly different way of navigating. You can change that. You notice that I've changed the colors slightly as well with the selection of the theme and also the transitions. We also have this native search engine now, so we can actually look through, and you can actually customize this to be the objects that you're interested in. But I can do a free text search across the application with what I want to find, and it'll return some results, and I can click on those results, and it'll take me to that record. So we have this open sort of free text search, and you can configure this in a variety of different ways. Either, for context, I can, simply just add my criteria here, and it'll search across, the fields that you've specified in the search. Or if I select the contact, it also provides me with, whatever fields that you want to sort of put in here for search capabilities. So you can do that across multiple, sort of data objects. Next, we have, let's go back to home. We have these report notifications. So, when I want to run a report, let's see, I'll run a simple protocol. Let's do a protocol documents report. Let's see if I can find a protocol that has some documents. Okay, so to run a report, you have the report icon is still there, but you have a few additional options. You can, see the reports that are available. You can still select the output type, but now you also have this schedule. So the BI Publisher scheduler is integrated, so you can choose to run those reports, once immediately, or you can choose a daily report that's run, and or a monthly report. So you can choose your frequency, how often you want to run this particular report. And once you run it, it'll actually show up in your notifications, and it'll show up in your notifications here. Here's the site context report is completed. That was the report that we ran earlier. And also, if you go into your My Reports view, you'll see a full listing of all of those reports. So if you schedule something on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis, you can actually schedule that yourself as a user, and it'll run that report, and then it'll show, so this is a document tracking report that we just ran, and it hasn't quite finished yet, but it'll show up in your My Reports for you to open that report whenever you go into the system. Okay. And then the last sort of basic sort of look and feel change that I want to show you is our contacts view. The contact grid. So here's the contact list. You can see that we can add images to your contacts, so you can sort of scroll through and actually see pictures and images, and you have this option for a tile view, which renders it similar to the tile view in Outlook, so you can sort of scroll through your contacts in this way. So again, a lot of sort of these cool new look and feel enhancements with OpenUI. So we're looking at the vanilla OpenUI application, and again, there's lots more capabilities when we introduce our own tools, our own custom-built sort of jQuery tools to the application. And we're planning on having another webinar that will go into more advanced features of Siebel OpenUI when we incorporate them into our system here. So in terms of clinical changes, we'll spend just a couple minutes just showing you those changes here. In administration clinical, if we go into our subject visit templates, you'll notice that we have a few more fields at the template versions level. So we have the status field, start and end dates, and this is actually driving what gets viewable at the site level when you're applying these subject visit templates to the site. So only the approved versions come through. And then from a visit perspective, you actually can drive. You'll notice that there's a plan field and subject tracking status tracking visit checkbox. So this essentially is saying that when this visit is complete, this is a status tracking visit, so I want the status to be updated of the subject, and here's the status that I want it updated to. So this essentially is building your automatic subject status. So you'll notice, you'll remember from the older version, the only things that were automatic were screen and enrolled when you actually click those buttons. But now we have additional statuses. So if there's, your last visit is complete, we want to mark the status automatically as completed. So in our previous version, you would have to do that manually. So this takes care of all of your subject statuses that you want based on actual visit completion, and it's built into the visit template. We'll go into our site management, and we'll look at our split payment options here. So under site management, I want to go into our payment exceptions. So you'll notice we have just a couple of activities that are in our payment exceptions. And once you make a payment exception, so here's the original amount from your visit template, and you can put in an exception amount that's different, but this allows us to now put in some split details. So we want 40% of the payment going to one investigator and 60% going to the other investigator. So you can do that split across one activity, and you can do it. So here, if I'm picking this here, I will select the contract and then select the payee, and I simply just assign the split percentage, and it'll calculate that based on that. So this is a very nice feature for us to be able to do that split percentage. And when we generate the payments from the application, from the subject level, you'll see that the split payments are generated into two different activities with the split payment amounts. So you'll see these two activities. So from the subject status perspective and the split payments perspective, let's take a look at that real quick. I'm just going to create a new subject here and put in this. So for this subject, I'm going to now show you the scheduling feature. So here, I'm simply going to schedule the visits for this particular subject. Oh, did I do something wrong? So here's all of our scheduling that came through. So it's different than screening and enrolling the patient. So all of our visits are come through with all of the plan dates, etc. And you'll see that if I complete this screening visit, so you'll see the status is still empty here. But if I put a completed date, and mark it as complete, and we can actually complete the activities as well. As soon as I do that, it actually automatically will change the status to screen. So, this will happen for each of the visits that you have a status for. So, once you complete the last visit, it'll automatically set the status to complete it. So that's a nice feature. And then when we're looking at our payment activities, so let me go back to my site, and we look at our payment activities, and let me try to find okay, so here's a couple of the ones that we just did. So here's our subject CCC, and you'll notice that the payments have been split accordingly, and the contract and everything is added to that procedure. So you'll notice it's the same procedure, but it's being split across those two investigators. So the split payment happens automatically, based on what you've set at that level. And I did want to get into the trip report, but I'm noticing that we're running out of time here. Eugene, do we have quite a few questions that have come through, or do I have a couple minutes to tackle?
We had several questions, but you also, I think, have a few more slides that you need to go through.
That's a good point. Okay, so we'll. I think I'll stop the demo at this point. And then, so we have time for questions and the rest of the presentation. But we'll have, like I said, we'll have more additional webinars on some advanced features, and we'll cover some of the items that we didn't cover so far in this webinar. So just a couple of slides really quickly on just our services when it comes to upgrades. We provide all of the services around an upgrade. So in-depth analysis and configuration compatibility, recommendations for resolving configuration conflicts, as there are going to be some with some of the new clinical functionality that's been added, particularly around subject enrollment and things like that. Recommendations for mitigating risk, validation risk assessments, testing, training, and actual technical upgrade and development services. So we offer all of the services around sort of upgrading. But one of the things I do advise, from an upgrade perspective, is do a separate sort of confined analysis phase, because it really will take quite a bit of time just to sort of go through that analysis in depth and really understand what the scope of this technical upgrade is going to be. So carving that out separately is going to be important, because that's what's going to tell you what the scope and level of effort is going to be on the actual implementation of the upgrade. And then from an implementation services perspective, I mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation as well. But we offer all of the same services, from an analysis, design, development, integration, implementation, validation, full-on training, and support services, as well as hosting. So with our accelerator solution, we have that option available as well. But we also do custom implementations of Siebel also. So whatever you're interested in, we can certainly help you through that. So with that, I will conclude the slides and demo and everything, and we'll open it up for questions.
Great, thank you. So before we move on to the questions that we've received so far, feel free to add your questions to the queue. So we'll move on to the first question. Are there any features currently available on older versions that are not supported on OpenUI?
Yes, so it's a good question. So there are a list of features that are not supported in OpenUI that have been either replaced with other features or you're going to look to other tools to sort of fill that gap. So, for instance, alerts and alarms, that were in the old system, they're now you can actually run them through the universal inbox notification. So that works through the universal inbox, and so does trip reports as well. Another key example of features that are not available now is iHelp, unfortunately. So iHelp was run through ActiveX components. And so with OpenUI not using ActiveX, iHelp is no longer supported in that. But you can, again, JavaScript, jQuery, you'll be able to utilize those to do some additional, custom-built tools for that. But you can also use task-based UI. So if iHelp was sort of guiding people through through a particular, workflow or task, then, task-based UI is still available, and you can utilize that for a similar purpose. There's some minor elements in the user interface that aren't available anymore, like freezing the columns and things like that. So I think, with all of these things that are not now available, I think the benefits and the appeal of OpenUI being a little bit more open, from a flexible, I think outweigh some of the inconvenience of some of the old features not being available anymore.
Great, thank you. Is Ascend only sold as a whole, or could just a module be purchased, such as a payments module?
So Ascend, from a new implementation perspective, is it's sold as a whole. It's an entire system. Organizations have chosen to phase the modules into their organization, slowly in some cases, where they can turn off modules and turn them on later. But that's all in the control of the client once they implement the solution as a whole. If the question is more, we already have Siebel, but we like what you did in the payments module, and we want to implement that, we can certainly do that. Since it's already been designed and developed, we can export that out and import it or rebuild it into your system. But that will be, sort of just the basic traditional, additional development that we'll do on your system. So, if there are modules that you see in Ascend that you'd like to incorporate within your own Siebel implementation, we can certainly do that and leverage everything that we've done in Ascend. But if the question is from a new implementation, can you select one or two modules and not implement the whole thing? Technically you're implementing everything, but you can functionally and administratively choose to turn on and off modules as you see fit for your organization.
Great, thank you. One last question I want to ask is, does BioPharm also offer Siebel CTMS as SaaS?
Yes. So we do offer, and we call it Ascend on Demand. So it's our accelerator solution that will be set up as a SaaS environment, SaaS setup. So you'd basically pay a monthly per user fee to use Ascend for your organization. So we host it, and there's several different hosting options here. So from a SaaS perspective, it's all pay as you go type of hosting. But we do offer full dedicated hosting as well, where in the sense that you're not really paying monthly for the application or for the Siebel licenses. You own the system, but you're just having us host it. So there are varied options when it comes to hosting. But yes, SaaS is an option, and some of our smaller clients, small to mid-sized clients are taking advantage of that and just paying, pay as you go per month per user.
Great, thank you. So it looks like we've used up the allotted time we have for this webinar, so that'll end our Q&A portion. If you do have other questions, feel free to contact us via phone or email. And once again, note that today's webinar will be available on biopharm.com within 24 hours for you to review and share with your colleagues. I'd also like to encourage all of you to visit proficient.com to learn about our new home. We want to thank you for your participation and hope that the information we provided you today was helpful. Have a great rest of the day and evening. Thank you for joining.